Hi, Hayden here, and this video is going to be my instruction or my demonstration of how to repair it doesn't look like it, but it's the Dyson V8 Motorhead. I guess it's the head, right? This is what this part of the vacuum looks like. And the issue here is that this device here, this thing breaks. This thing here, the trigger guard here snaps. And in fact, this one here is the second one. You know, this is the original that we got with the vacuum. And then, you know, Dyson was nice enough to send us a new version of this thing, you know, no questions asked. They basically said it's kind of a rare thing that happens. If I remember right, that's secondhand information from my wife, Misdemeanor, but she said that, hey, that's something that would rarely happen, and we're going to send you out a new one at no charge. They didn't charge us shipping, they didn't charge us for it and everything. They sent it out to us. This is the device that it is, and it holds the battery. The battery pack is the whole bottom, and I'll go through the replacement of this at the end. When I swap these out, I'll show you how you swap that part of it out should you end up needing one. But basically, this thing's going to turn on. The vacuum's going to turn on. I'm going to lift up on the trigger guard. See, that should never happen. The thing turned on. That should never happen. But because the trigger guard's broken, and you should be able to see it in the video. There it goes again. That there's a crack underneath the bottom of this thing, you know, and it's, you know, way movable. You should never be able to move this thing. All right. And then again, in my other videos where I was talking about this situation that not only should it never happen, but the thing never needed to be there in the first place. You know, this one here, the guard broke off, and my wife, Misdemeanor, did some fine work around the sides to get rid of the sharp edges that will stab you. But I'm going to do some fine detail work on this because I realized in one of my other videos that this trigger, when you take the battery out, goes flat. In fact, holding it upside down, the trigger doesn't fall down, you know, out either. It's actually spring loaded inside. We can't see the spring mechanism because there's a little plug right there and there's a bit of a device. But you actually have to have the battery installed for the trigger to come down. So what I'm going to use is I have my Dremel tool here. I don't know which version this one is. I've had a couple of them. Oh, it says Dremel 300 something or 3001. All right. And but I'm going to use this thing here. When I'm doing this, when I'm running the Dremel, it makes noise. So I'm going to cut down the audio for that. Maybe I'll throw some music in the background or whatever. Maybe I'll speed that up as well. But I'm going to tilt the camera down and show you what I'm doing to make this kind of a cleanest edge up and make it, you know, safer for me to use or more comfortable for me to use. Now, my wife had done some work with it, but the device she used wasn't a Dremel tool and it wasn't meant for fine detail work. And it touched the trigger guard, or the trigger, or the red part. It touched that and it put a little scratch on there. Does nothing to do with the function of, or the comfort or feel of the you know, handle in your hand. You know, when you have it in your hand, you don't even notice it. So, but she did a really great job with this larger grinder thing she had, and you know, she cleaned up all the sharp edges right away. You know, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little fine detail work and get rid of that other stuff, just for general comfort and everything else for long-term use. And then, of course, after that, I'll go ahead and remove the finger guard, the trigger guard on the other units, and then we'll just have a spare, right? Because inside this is the electric motor. This is the electric motor that runs your Dyson. So what I'm going to have with the Dremel tool, I have two things. I have a grinder. This is the green grinder. I can't tell if it's in focus or not because can't see things that close. But anyways, so that, and I also have, this is a little, I don't know the names of each one of these little heads, but this one here looks like a little barrel, like a little miniature tiny can of soda or something like that on top of that. And I don't know if you can see the fine details of this thing. Plus I don't have light on it. I can get some light on that thing. There we go. Try to get it in front of the lens there a little bit. But you see the grinding action on the front of that? And that I use a lot. And that can do really fine detail work. In fact, I wouldn't recommend it, but I did. I used it on dentures to actually, if you're aware of an upper denture, it's got a full thing on the top. And you know, it's not disgusting or anything, but there's something called a gag reflex. If you were to take your finger, put it at the roof of your mouth and slide backwards, at some point you're going to gag. That's where your gag reflex is. So now you know, in case you were wondering about that. but a full denture might go back far enough to where it just irritates that. And what it is basically the roof of your mouth has a bone in there, and then there's like a soft tissue because the bone stops, and that pretty much is around that area. So this I actually use to make a horseshoe, like a lower denture is a horseshoe because it has to be because your tongue is down there. But the upper denture, I made it to be like a horseshoe as well. And it was a trial and error thing. Maybe I should make a video about that for denture wearers. Because you can have a dentist actually, your dentist or a denturist. In Canada, they call them denturists, and they make dentures. Anyway, so, but let's go ahead and get into this one here, and I'll do the fine detail work. Now, I actually am going to grab a pair of glasses for this. I got my safety glasses on because I don't want a piece of plastic going up into my eye. It shouldn't, but you know, just in case, I'll put on my glasses so I can see the fine detail of what I'm doing. Again, while I'm working on this, I'm going to go ahead and let's see if we can get this table more even with there we go. And then we'll go ahead and put some music or something in the background, speed this up. The first thing I'm going to try is this green grindy thing here. We'll try that. And the reason why I'm going to try that is because I want to see if I can do it with that first. And then this one here will remove plastic really quickly, you know. And you got to have the feel for this stuff. Don't just try to go crazy on it. Just try little by little, tiny bites, right? So let's get into this, see what we can do. Hopefully we'll be able to see this on the camera. I want to make a note here. I just I was doing something that I want to explain that what I'm doing, because you can't feel what I feel through my hands, and you really have to have that. You have to have that tactile feel. You have to have the feel for what you're doing. You would want to work really, really slow on this because because it's a spinning device, it can kind of jump on me and hit an area that I wouldn't want to hit. You know, I don't want to hit the red button anymore, kind of thing like that, or I don't want to do anything else like that. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm basically like it was a teeny tiny kitten or something like that. I'm just petting it nice, and that's a good way to say it. Petting this thing nice and slow with the tip as I get closer to that red button. I'm really, really slow in my work to try to get that done. And then, you know, this thing here is coming down pretty quick. If it wasn't coming down fast enough, I would go to the metal one. Again, it looks like this is very, very sharp, and it can make, you know, plastic disappear very quick. So you got to be really super careful with this thing and just really feel it. Another thing I'm doing is I'm putting my fingers. I saw this with painters. Sometimes when they're painting stuff, they will have a stick and they'll rest their hand on the stick to give themselves a little bit more when they're getting into fine detail brush strokes and everything. Now, I'm not a painter by any, you know, stretch of the imagination, but there are some things like this where that little bit of extra. I saw somebody doing pin striping. Sometimes you look at the cars at the dealership and they got the fine detailed pin striping on it. Sometimes it's a sticker. Sometimes somebody actually went in there and did a very, very fine detailed pin stripe, and they painted it on by hand. And I was very, very impressed. And that the gentleman I saw doing that did have he had a wooden stick with a little rubber thing at the end, so he didn't, you know, touch the car and everything like that. And it was a pretty decent sized stick. It was probably about as wide as the cord here, and you know, kind of lengthy. But he had actually rested his hand on that stick while he was doing that fine detailed painting of a pinstripe on a car, and I was pretty impressed by that. All right, so let's get back into that. And again, I'm going to use everything I can. My finger might come off here a little bit, and I'll be touching the handle of the Dyson motor aspect of it, and then just gently, you know, gently touching the spinning device to it, just to get off a little bit at a time. You want to take this off in little tiny bites. You don't want to go, you know, gangbusters on this. All right, so let's get back to it. That's coming out pretty good. So let's go ahead and hit a little bit more. I'm just basically trying to rub off any loose pieces of plastic. I'm also using my fingertip to feel if there's any sharp edges in there or anything that I want to be aware of. I don't want to actually introduce another problem to it. No, this feels pretty good. Along the side, there's this little notch thing right here. There is a part of the plastic that is actually slightly thinner, I guess. Not the plastic isn't thinner, it's designed to be thinner because of that little guard thing that's going to be there, I guess. But it actually feels pretty smooth right here. It's not a lip, you know. It's just a little, you know, just a slight little thing there. And to me, those little, it's kind of, I think of it like a finger comfort kind of zone or whatever. You don't need that trigger guard there, but that little, kind of like a pistol might have, some of them on the grip will have those little ridges on there for just where your fingers go. So the thing is like really steady in your hand kind of thing. Which would be good for a firearm. But for your Dyson, I mean, if they want to do something for your fingers, they could do it like that. But again, the problem is, you know, I got big meaty fingers kind of thing, and somebody might have dainty fingers. So one grip isn't good for everybody. And this thing never needed to be there in the first place. So let me just do a little bit of fine touch up, and I'll show you one more thing at the end of that. Let's get to it. All right, I want to grab one more device here. I'm just going to grab my nail file, and I'll show you one more thing with this. Let's go ahead and unplug the Dremel tool. And I just want to, I'll be right back. Let me grab that. Okay, here I just have basically, I don't know how much this thing would have cost, but it's $1, a couple of dollars, whatever, at the whatever store. It's just basically a nail file. And you can use something like this as well. You don't have a Dremel. Nail files will have a rough side and a smooth side for finishing. And they, you know, when you got the thing new, it has the name of it and everything else will say, you know, finishing side and stuff like that. You can use that on here as well. You know, it'll take a little longer to get it done, but if you don't have a Dremel tool and you don't really have a need for a Dremel tool and you don't want to buy one, you can also just file it off with a small file. I'm going to have to put my glasses on just to see the fine details here. Make sure I got the fine edge. And basically I just want to get any little high points off that are not like smooth, you know. I just want to make sure it's smooth. Let's get this thing back in a picture here as I move it further away so you can't see it. And again, you want to use your fingers and kind of feel, like when you're on the ridge, like say you're just on that ridge part, you just want to be able to feel it where it is in the nail file while you're working. Just, you know, kind of use your feelings, you know, the physical feel of where the thing is placed so that you can just hit the rough spots, you know, the high points that might poke you a little bit. Now for me, the main reason I'm using the nail file is just really just to clean up any little pieces of plastic. You see these pieces of plastic here on the towel in front of me. And the reason why I'm using that is kind of funny because the cats sit here. This is where my cats sit when I'm doing my YouTube day and all that. Two of our cats, Mr. Handsome and Simon, will hang out on this towel. Now they're not the best of friends, but when they're going to hang out in the office, they have to be friends. So anyway, so otherwise, if there's ever a doubt, they got to go out. So, but I'm just using this because what I'm going to do is drop all this material on the towel, and then I'm going to drop it on the floor. Then I'm going to use my Dyson and clean everything up for the day. So that's why I wanted to get this done before I start. I already did my other morning chores with the cats, But my other task that I need to do is I need to vacuum before I get to go out in the field and play with the tractor and stuff. So, yeah, you want to play with your toys, you got to be a good boy, or girl, as the case may be, and get your chores done, and then you can do some play. All right, so I'm going to go out there and play with a chainsaw, do some more limb trimming and stuff, and then I'm going to also use the tractor to smooth out some ground that got roughed up yesterday. And then I'm also going to use my Toro mower and the Polar cart to help me clean up a lot of work that I started yesterday and didn't get to finish because it got too late in the day. All right, this is looking pretty good. All right. Oh, it feels great. Great. Very good. I've done fantastic work here. So what I'm going to do, Misdemeanor, my wife, Misdemeanor, she already did everything on here that needed to be done to make it nice and safe and comfortable. I just wanted to go ahead and just get a little couple of loose ridges off that she couldn't reach with the tool that she had. And then, but I have the fine detail stuff, and it was my fault because I neglected. I didn't tell her that I was going to fix that, and I also didn't know at the time. I was going to try to fix it the same way she did with the trigger up, because the battery's connected and you have to take it apart. And that's the next part. I'm going to show you how to change out the two motors on here. All right, so I did that in another video, but I'm going to do it again in this video before I clean this stuff up. All right, so hang on for that. The next part of this step is going to be to replace the motor part. This is the engine, the motor. All right, so we'll change that next. Hang on. All right, for this part, I'm going to have to put on some glasses, and let's take a look at what we got here. Number one, this thing here is a filter. There's another filter here that you pull out, clean up, and this one here twists off. Now this has that black dot on there. The black dot lines up with this black dot, and you turn it, and you're cooking with gas. You didn't notice the black dot on the other one because this yellow sticker is over it. So there you have it. So that's kind of interesting. But I just leave the warning sticker on there. I guess I have the word max on there. Anyway, so maybe this is an update to the other one. But anyways, there's 3 screws on here. There's 1 here and there's 2 here, and you really can't get to either one of them. So you remove this filter here, and then you can reach the 1, and then you have to take the unit apart to get it down to the stripped out version. So let's take this main part off. And we do that by lifting up on the suction head part, and then there's a red dot back in there, and it's ambidextrous. There's one on the left and the right. You can push either one, and then you can just lift straight out. Just lift it nice and easy. If you're forcing it, you're breaking it. This thing here is not super duper heavy duty plastic, all right? So that's that part off. And then the door opens up, of course. I'm gonna clean up this anyway. So, and then just push this button down here, right? And that will release this part of it atop, and this just pops right off. Just slide it this way, and it just pops right off, all right? So now we're looking at something that's almost the same, right? They look almost the same. One of these things just doesn't belong here, right? We need to take the battery off, and that's with those 3 screws. 2 of the screws are right there, up at the top here. So you couldn't get to them until you pulled that thing off, until you pulled off the bucket, and then we can reach these other 2 screws. Oof. My idea was to start the screws off and then just come back to it, but the problem with that was you have to remove the bucket, and I don't know how well it's going to fit on there after the fact. So these screws should come all the way out, I believe. Sometimes you'll have a screw and the screw actually stays in there, but these come all the way out. I don't need to know if they have to come out though. This one does. All right, so this will come out. And okay, so it does have to come out because that's actually attached to the battery. This is kind of an interesting battery too, so we'll check this out as soon as I get this other screw off. All right, so this 3 screws, it doesn't matter which one goes where. Luckily, all 3 of the screws are the same. Just double check that. They are. So the 3 screws are the same, and the battery just slides out. Now, remember I told you about the button. This one here is now recessed. The button has a lever in there, so you have to push on it in order to get power from the battery. What that means is there's a button somewhere on here, right? And here it is right here. when you push down, when you pull the trigger on the Dyson, what happens is there's a lever in there that actually pushes down, and it pushes down on this battery. That's a little button right there to activate the battery. So that's kind of a neat thing, very proprietary. And actually part of this comes off too, because I see a screw here, and I think a big part of this whole thing comes off too as well. So the battery is not something that you're gonna, have an extra battery pack charging kind of thing, because it screws on, and it's really kind of meant to be the way they have it here in a proprietary battery pack. So with that, this one here still got the finger guard on it. This thing's almost broken completely off, so let's just go ahead and finish that job. All right, so the finger guard does break off. And then this part right here is just this is a class action lawsuit waiting to happen to me, in my mind, because this thing here is just razor sharp. So before I do anything else with that, I'm going to finish putting this together. But before I do anything else with this thing here, I'm going to take my grinder, plug in my Dremel tool again, and I'll grind this one down too, and just throw it in reserve, and then we'll have it right as a spare. But there's two sharp pieces of plastic on here, and the taller one is just razor sharp at the edge. All right. Again, when the thing broke, my finger touched that thing, and I took the finger off of the trigger piece of plastic that was stabbing me, and I went back to my other vacuum and did the rest of the house that way. And then when this one here started breaking, because we already had a broken one, actually my wife Misdemeanor fixed this first, so I was able to use this, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to trim that up a little bit more, work on that, and we did get the new one from Dyson, so we started using this. But when this one here broke, I was like, okay, I'm going to use the other vacuum, and I've been using that for a bit. But I'll go ahead and put my safety glasses back on. I always use your safety glasses when operating with the Dremel, because the thing does throw plastic, or whatever else you might be dremeling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the battery pack on the other one. This is the one I just cleaned up. And basically the battery just slides right on. It only goes on one way. If you're putting it on, if you're forcing it, you're breaking it, right? So this part of the little spire here slides up into the back of the handle. There are these two, equal signs here, I guess, but that's actually for a plug, just like a plug you plug into the wall kind of thing. And inside the handle, there's these two metal prongs, and they slide right into there. So you really can't mess this up. You just slide it in, and it's in. Now just, here, this is not a battery pack that locks into place. They didn't have a mechanism to lock it in other than using these screws. So I'll go ahead and screw these back in. And let's go ahead and put this thing back together. I usually just get them started first. Since I know they're holding things in, then I could start working on it. It's funny to me because I'm looking at this thing here without the filter on it, and it looks like this is supposed to be the front. It's not. It's the back. All right. Now I'm screwing in the plastic, so you don't really want to over torque these things. It really is just meant to hold the thing on. So you want to get them, down there. They are tight the whole way. Tightening them up, they're tight the whole way. But you really just want to get them flush and don't over torque these things, because if you strip out the plastic, you're done. There are ways to work around that, but that's a different video for a different day. All right, so this is on. This should work. Oh. It won't work until I put it back together. So let's go ahead and put it back together. And of course, we can put the bucket on first. Just release the, it's going to release anyway if you don't do it. And this has two plugs on the top. There's two plugs right here on the top. These sit right into a section up here. So just basically kind of set this on here. You can see, by the way, there's a little, where everything locks in is right there. You can see it. So just pop this in here where everything can connect up. And once it's flat, just push it in. All right, so that's on, right? And now the next part is to put the roof back on the house here. And these here just have these there's these two little, I don't know how well you can see them on the camera, but there's two little tracks, two little rails that slide right into these tracks here. And they just go in and you're on. All right, now it should work. And there we are, cooking with gas. So now we got this nice safe Dyson for me to work with. And then after I turn off this video, I'm gonna go to town and work on this one here and make this nice and safe, and then we'll have a spare. And this is actually the engine. The battery connects up to the engine, other parts on it, the bucket, okay, and the suction head, they slide into place and lock in, and then you're good to go, all right? That's gonna wrap it up for this video, and that's basically explaining how I am doing my own fix to the broken trigger guard on my Dyson V8 Motorhead, all right? So if you have that little thin trigger guard, which is this little guy right here, all right? And it starts, if it's wobbling like a diving board kind of thing back here, if you can move it, it's gonna break. If you lift up on it and your machine turns on, it's gonna break, all right? It's already broken, as a matter of fact. So, but this is my thing to fix this. It takes a little bit of just a few minutes to do it, but work slow. Work slow, don't overdo it, don't jump the gun on anything, and work cautiously, and you'll be able to get your thing, and even a nail file. If you got the time, whatever to do that, you can file this whole thing down nice and smooth and safe. You could actually do it with a nail file, all right? I'm gonna use my Dremel tool to get the job done a little faster, and then just finish it off with the fine detail stuff with the fine edge of just a regular nail file, all right? So with that, that's gonna wrap up this video. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like this video, make a comment below, let me know you came by to say hi, and until I catch, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate the growth on the network. And until I catch you in the next video, take care and be well.